news story for the first time in 1968, which is roughly, back Stone Age, I would assume, for you. I was pretty certain it would get to about 8 miles outside of Greenfield, Indiana, which is about as far as they sold the paper. After that, I wasn't really certain where somebody could see my story. Now, if I did a really good job and saw my story get picked up on one of the national news wires, it might go out to the nation. Almost certainly, it didn't go outside of the United States. I mean, without question. Think about what you can do in our lifetimes. You can speak to the planet with the touch of a single key stroke. Just send. That's an amazing change in the nature of communication, sir.
Well, yeah, thinking of it that way, there's people who are just a couple of years older than us that have started revolutions around the world. And, I mean, like Arab Spring. And it's just, for us to have that power, to some extent, isn't correct. It's not correct. It's not.
You think it's too early, too soon?
It's too early, it's too soon. It's still premature. People aren't fully educated with how to deal with it, and they're causing global contradictions and global conflict.
I think you make a valid point. I would note that the founders of the United States, for example, in the 1700s were young, principally in that era, young men. Although we find out that they went home and talked to young women and stole their ideas and came back and said they were there. So there were men and women. That's the nature of revolution. You get to be people my age, although I still think I'm pretty, anxious to see change. But you've got a mortgage, a family, you're a little tired, whatever you got, your back hurts, whatever it is. Revolution is the province of the young. And while I think you have a point about no reason not to let old people be revolutionaries, because they do have experience and knowledge and wisdom to bring, I think in any era, regardless of the technology, a revolution or a change in the way things happen, radical change, is the province of young people. First of all, they haven't made a lot of compromises to get where they are. And frankly, in America and elsewhere, we say, well, okay, our country was a contradiction. We seem to forget that we had slavery in this country, even as our founding documents talked about all people, and we the people. It took us 100 years to lead, well, a little short of 100 years in the Civil War to correct that circumstance. And who did that? That wasn't the old established folks. That was a constant stream of young people engaged and willing to risk. If you look at the Freedom Riders, they were largely college students. They were not the leaders of the Civil Rights Movement. In fact, Martin Luther King, whose birthday we'll celebrate tomorrow, was not on the Freedom Rides and met with them in Birmingham and refused to go on the second part of the Freedom Rides into Mississippi, and was sharply criticized for that. His point, he was more valuable outside of jail, which is where they were headed, and they knew that. They went in prison in Mississippi when they got there. But even then, people criticized him. So I would just caution that wisdom that you've offered with the idea that it's ever thus. And one of the things about technology that we can use to work toward the negative aspects of your thought, the observation, I should say, that it's not as well informed, not as mature, not too critical of your voice, is that information could be shared in a way it couldn't before, because we just didn't know. We couldn't transmit information back and forth. We didn't have a perspective from inside and outside an area. Social media today is, while also a force for change, is a tremendous source for information and news. And it is inherently unbiased. I need to explain that very fast. Because if you do a good job of listening to more than one voice, it is inherently unbiased. You have to listen to multiple voices. One thing that concerns me is if you get news and information from just your friends, or from just one news source, whether that's government controlled or just happens to be the one you like, you aren't doing a good job of using the technology and the tools that you have to stay informed. You need to look and listen to and be informed informed by, and judge critically, not accept automatically, multiple news sources, multiple sources of news and information. And God's sake, don't go to Wikipedia and rely on it.